Hello everyone and welcome to the live Q&A with me, Professor Michael Scott. It is the 27th of April. Hasn't time flown by? Although we may have had a problem with the wireless. Hopefully that will not kind of come back as well again. So fingers crossed that you can all hear me well and that we are connecting together as ever from all different parts of the world. As you know, I was away for my birthday in the Atlantic on the tiny island of Porto Santo off Madeira. It was extremely pleasant indeed to be kind of in the middle of the sea, one of my favourite places in the world. And then since back then, and now back to work with vim and vigour here at the university. And you will, some of you eagle-eyed will have noticed that I'm not in my traditional place in front of my clock, coming to you live with this Q&A, but instead I am up at the university in my Warwick Institute of Engagement office here at the university. So this is where the magic happens, where we help empower all the staff and students of the university to get out there and engage the public about and with their research, ideas, thoughts, and collaborate together to create new research, thoughts, ideas, and kind of ways to improve and think and create a better society for us all. So I hope that I am coming loud and clear to you, that the Wi-Fi is not letting us down, and that you are all well. Hello Jerry, hello Patricia, hello Tracy, hello everyone. Thank you so much. Hello Catherine, thank you all so much indeed for tuning in. And as ever, thank you for your fantastic questions that have been coming in as well. Now it's been a busy month with for the ancient world. There is a mass amount of stuff to get through, and a large number of questions coming in, but interestingly as well, also gathering together on some very specific topics. Now it's pretty clear that Cleopatra is one of those key topics. Hello Helen, hello Lorraine, hello George, how are you all? Thank you so much indeed for tuning in, and thank you for coming back together. It is, as ever, always a pleasure to come back and spend a little half an hour with you delving into the wonders of the ancient world, although this time we are starting by thinking about the representation of the ancient world in the modern world, and that's to do with the Cleopatra documentary on Netflix. Now this is part of a wider series which is looking particularly at African queens, and it is kind of masterminded by Jada Pinkett Smith, and is being produced across kind of a whole series of realms of history, so not just about the ancient world, but Cleopatra is one of the early episodes, and it's been brought about quite some controversy in all different ways, shapes and forms. Hello Dee, watching from the Philippines. It's midnight with you. Thank you so much indeed for tuning in. Are you waking up early or are you still yet to go to bed? Do let us know. Hello from Melbourne. Helen, where's the clock? Helen, we started with this. I'm not at home behind my clock. I'm in a new location, I think, for this Q&A. I don't think I've done a Q&A from here before. This is my office in the Institute of Engagement at the University of Warwick, where we get out there and make sure that everything that is going on in the university, we are involved and discussing it with the wider public, and particularly kind of here within the region of Coventry and Warwickshire. Hello Elizabeth, hello Patricia, thank you all so much indeed for tuning in. But yes, a number of you have been watching the Netflix documentary on Cleopatra, in which, of course, documentary, so recreation, in which Adele Jones has been cast as Cleopatra, and this has kicked off a number of discussions about whether or not we can even talk about the nature of a black queen within antiquity, whether those kind of labels still work when you think back to ancient history, and then whether or not there is any evidence from the ancient world for Cleopatra to have been black, as we may or may not understand that term to mean in relation to the ancient world, and then kind of there's been a discussion about whether or not that actually matters in terms of modern representations and representations of the ancient world through kind of a fictional dramatic narrative series. So kind of there's been a lot going on, but a lot of you are putting questions on this issue. So Kula Serkiadi has been asking about what are the moral guidelines that we should take into consideration when portraying historical figures in movies. D Gilbert Amper kind of listening in for the Philippines. Any comments on the controversy regarding the Netflix docuseries portraying Cleopatra as black. And also kind of coming in from the Ancient Gods Mythology FB page, what story or part of Greek mythology would you like to see most as an accurate, in brackets, movie or series? So thank you all so much indeed for your questions. Now, we have a whole series of difficulties and layers of this to unpack, don't we? Let's start with the ancient world. Right? What is the ancient evidence? Well, we know that Cleopatra was the last descending ruler of the Ptolemaic ruling family that went back before her over 300 years to Ptolemy, who was the original Ptolemy, who was one of the generals of Alexander the Great. So Macedonian general who, after Alexander the Great died in Babylon, basically just sort of took part of Alexander's empire, which included Egypt, set himself up as a ruling entity, and then began a dynasty of the Ptolemies. So we know that on her father's side, Cleopatra was, many generations later, has that kind of Macedonian descent, resident in Egypt for the previous 300 years. On the other hand, we don't have any clarity as to who Cleopatra's mother was in the ancient sources. So we don't know it could be any kind of personage or descent or regional kind of character from the ancient world. And that has opened up a conversation about, in terms of how should we imagine, both from a physical perspective, the skin colour of Cleopatra to have been, but also to what she might have considered her ancestry or her identity or an ethnicity to have been formed around, and how might that have been different or similar to many of the Egyptian elites of the time. And these are incredibly difficult questions to answer, because not only do we not have the evidence to know what her parentage was on both sides, but then equally we have to think ourselves at this second layer back into how would they have thought about and discussed and talked about these kinds of issues within Egypt in the 1st century BCE, which was part of a much wider kind of Mediterranean world in which communities were moving and interacting all the time, which was becoming fast and even part of a larger kind of Roman Empire, of course, and after Cleopatra, Egypt would become part of the Roman Empire, and in which there were not these same categories that we talk about in relation to colour, in relation to race and origin, ethnicity and identity that we use today. So we have these several different layers that we have to unpack, and then think, do they have anything to do with, or should they have anything to do with, a docuseries that's being portrayed on Netflix, and choices that are made about casting for that character. Now, it's interesting that where this has caused the most controversy is in Egypt itself, where there is an Egyptian very, very strong feeling that they do not want modern Egypt in any way, shape or form to be in any way separated off from ancient Egypt. This has been something that the modern Egyptians feel has been used against them in the past, that claim that they don't have a direct connection back to the history or ancient Egypt, in order to support narratives of taking objects from Egypt, from that ancient time of Egypt, to other countries and having them installed and displayed in other countries, somehow strengthening or lessening rather the argument to return those items, because there isn't a direct connection between the ancient peoples who created them and the modern peoples who live there. But it is also a statement that sits at the heart of how Egypt sees its own ancient past, and that has led to archaeologists like Zavi Hawass making very public statements about how this is not acceptable to have such a person cast in the role of Cleopatra in the docuseries. In fact, an Egyptian lawyer has even launched a legal challenge in Egypt to have Netflix sort of banned, and particularly this series sort of banned from being shown in Egypt because it contravenes, he would argue, a series of Egyptian laws about the representation and defamation of the Egyptian character and nationality and nationhood and identity. So you can see there's a lot at stake here, and it echoes some of the other issues that we've had in the past with representations in film. So in the film 300, for instance, the representation of the Persian king Xerxes was widely criticised within modern-day Iran, and Iran actually made, again, legal challenges and political challenges to the representation of their ancestor Xerxes within the film there, because they didn't like the way in which the choices had been made. Now, Adele herself has come out very strongly on Twitter going like, well, if you don't like it, don't watch it. Absolutely, this is not the space in which to have any kind of racist and xenophobic kind of reactions, and we actually have to treat this much more sensitively, thinking about what is the ancient evidence, what are the ancient categories in which they would have thought about race, identity, ethnicity, then actually do those matter in relation to a modern docuseries or drama series being created, and if so, to what extent do we have to differentiate our modern discussions and debates around these issues from how they would have been represented in antiquity, or at least understand that what we really are talking about are the modern issues, rather than debating what the ancient reality may or may have not been like. So that's a little bit of my take on it, Kula and Dee, if whether there are any moral guidelines that need to be taken into consideration when portraying historical figures in movies. I mean, in movies, no, because the movies are, at the end of the day, an art form. It is the continual reinvention of the story, isn't it? That is what kind of myth was designed to be, a continual reinvention of the story in which things can be tweaked and changed in order to kind of give new emphasis to different elements of that story, and also to move the kind of the sense of the story on, and in fact change elements of the story so that they are continually alive beings. I don't think we can ever hold movies up, nor should we, to any kind of moral code for whether or not they've got history right. It's not the point of a movie. This docuseries format confuses that, because we're used to thinking about documentaries as kind of history documentaries. We may have lost you again. I do apologise for the Wi-Fi going a bit down for a second there. But kind of complicated questions. If you do want to have a discussion, though, more about the ancient realities of Cleopatra, then I would suggest the You're Dead to Me recent episode on Cleopatra is a great podcast to listen to, and you can get lots of good information about the ancient realities. And then also you might want to watch the Netflix drama and make a decision for yourself. I'm sorry if there's a disturbance in the Wi-Fi, Elizabeth. There seems to be a little bit at the moment, but fingers crossed that kind of things will improve in the not too distant future. Thank you all for tuning in. And so we move on to some of the other questions, but this one I want to come back to. The Ancient Gods and Mythology FB page has asked the question of what story or part of Greek mythology would you most like to see as a movie or series? And this is a question I would like to pose to you all as well. Kind of what part of Greek mythology would you most like to see as a movie or kind of documentary series on Netflix, for instance? So kind of send in your thoughts either now live on the chat, or you can send them in on the Facebook page over the next couple of days and weeks, we can also get them through michaelscottacademic@gmail.com, and we can do a good poll on the Facebook page to suggest kind of what would be our favourites, and then maybe just maybe we can think about how we might make one of these. So Tracy's saying Eros and Psyche, absolutely. I would love to see a life of Hercules, an actual proper life of Hercules from beginning to end, not just doing the 12 labours. That's the bit that we all know about, but for me, the kind of life of Hercules that starts from what we know of his childhood, growing up when he was a very, very surly teenager indeed, and then kind of running all the way through to when he gads off around the world in ever greater Mediterranean, and then supra-Mediterranean, kind of going around the world. He's supposed to turn up, perhaps getting all the way over to India as well, and then kind of certainly his image carries on even further east from that. So I would love to see a really kind of generous kind of sense of the Herculean life from start to finish. I'm sorry that some of you are saying that it's frozen, or that you're losing sound. Hopefully it's coming back slowly but surely. So Sarah Louise Medea, Patricia, you've lost some sound as well. Oh dear, I hope this is coming back sometimes Susan Bondir, we've had Eris and Psyche, I'm suggesting Life of Hercules. It would be good to get your suggestions in as well, as to what we can suggest to the Ancient Gods Mythology FB page about what story or part of Greek mythology would you most like to see. Claire suggests trying to refresh your page. Anyone who's having trouble with either sound or image, try to refresh your page. Claire, thank you so much for your suggestion. Catherine's got all good here. It's completely frozen on my side, says video. Oh no, right. Okay, so do all try to refresh your pages and hopefully the video and sound will be there. Loud and clear in Paxos. Says Liz. She's getting me all very jealous now about all the amazing places that you are watching from. Thank you so much indeed for your responses. But keep sending those in. What would part of Greek mythology or what story of Greek mythology would you most like to see as a movie or series? And we can do a poll to see what would be the first. James is in Malta, George is in Australia, all good, with the sound as well. Thank you so much all for tuning in. Do just refresh your pages if you're having any other problems. And do send in your suggestions around what you would most like to see as a movie or series from Greek mythology. Memo Muller has also got in touch. There's definitely a mythological feel in the air or something in the water. And actually, we'll come back to that when we have a look at the the news and events about the ancient world, because it feels like there really is Greek mythology going crazy, going nuts at the moment. But Memo Muller is asking, what is your favourite mythical creature? And again, this is one I'm going to throw back out to you as well. So tell me your favourite mythical creatures from the ancient Greek or Roman world. Oh no, Patricia, no sound from the Prof. Prof, so no sound. I do apologise. Do keep trying to refresh that page. Fingers crossed that we can get it sorted soon enough. For me, I want to offer you two. On the one hand, I've always had a soft spot for a satyr, for the half man, half goat character. Now, way back in the day when I was an MPhil student, I did my MPhil dissertation on satyrs, and they are crazy creatures indeed. Get up to all sorts of really quite weird and wonderful and slightly dodgy and slightly mad things on ancient Greek vases, but sometimes also in statuary, and they're certainly good for a giggle. So satyr, definitely one of my favourite mythical creatures. But also on the other end of the spectrum, slightly more cantankerous, the Linnaean Hydra. Yes, I just love this character, this creature with the idea of the heads that keep coming back and doubling if you try and cut one off. It's such a great metaphor. It's always felt like a metaphor for if you tackle a problem in life in the wrong way, it just comes back to bite you doubly as hard. So it's about trying to find the right way to tackle the problem so the heads won't come back at you. Obviously this links in with good old Hercules as well, and find the right way of doing it by burning the stump of the neck after you cut it off rather than letting it grow back was his solution to the problem. But for Alexis, it's Cerberus, absolutely. James loves a Hydra. Who doesn't love a Hydra? Absolutely. Alexis, Cerberus. Any other thoughts about your favourite mythical creatures? Helen so enjoyed Ithaca by Claire North about Penelope. Yes, would work well on screen. Nice movie adaptation there. We could do with a proper Odyssey for a start, couldn't we? I mean, we haven't had a proper Odyssey on screen, and they keep talking about potentially making one. It's in the works as a movie. That would be fantastic to see as well. Who would you have playing those key characters? Tough question to ask. Classical Lego, says Helen. Where has this come from? Is this your favourite mythical creature? Do keep sending in your thoughts about your favourite mythical creatures, and thank you, Memo, for your question. Now, here's a one that came in that is slightly totally took me by surprise. Latifa Walker asking about the Manifest season 4 on Netflix. So Netflix is getting a lot of airtime today with us. And in the plot, they're searching for a sapphire that the oracle at Delphi was said to have used to enhance her link to divine consciousness. So my question is this based on any historical evidence of a sapphire? Did the oracle at Delphi use anything to enhance their connection to the gods? Latifa, I have never heard of a sapphire being involved with the Oracle at Delphi in terms of enhancing her link to the divine consciousness ever. In all of my time, that is a complete new one on me. Now, whether she was using anything to enhance the connection to the gods, I mean, that gets us into the story of the vapours, and whether there was some gases emerging from under the ground at Delphi, and potentially it was ethylene, and it would have been sending her high into a trance. But absolutely no sense of a sapphire, I'm afraid. I think that is definitely Netflix making it up. Helen, Satyrs and the Hydra, absolutely brilliant. Elisa says, went to the National Trust property at the weekend. The whole staircase was painted with mythological stuff. Yeah, aren't they amazing when you see some of those scenes? Some of the beautiful scenes, and kind of interesting some of the choices as well that you've articulated there, that they've gone for as well. What would you have in your home if you had to put, that's another question of Memo Muller's question, you know, not just what's your favourite mythological creature, but if you had to have it painted on your walls in your home, what would you have on the walls to greet you on a daily basis, to serenade you and be around you when you're going through your day-to-day work or your day-to-day living and relaxation, or in the kitchen maybe? What would you want to see up on that wall above the sink? Right, we're changing course slightly to the Roman world, because Anna Leva has been in touch. Why did the Romans never conquer Ireland? And we might add to that good parts of Wales and Scotland. Why did they stop at Britain? There's lots of arguments and responses to this, Anna. Partly, many would kind of argue, oh, we chased them off, we stopped them, you know, the idea of the Welsh were just too fierce, the Scottish were just too fierce, and indeed, don't even get me started on the Irish. But over time, we have moved away from those kinds of explanations, and particularly what you see at the boundaries of where Roman conquest got to, particularly if you think about the English-Welsh border, or the Roman to Wales territory and the Celtic tribes, that you see an awful lot of actual interaction at the borders, and certainly interaction by trade. So this was not a stark line where no man's land, where no one talked to anyone on the other side and they dug in a trench-like way. Actually, we see lots of interaction between these groups, lots of borrowings of certain elements of architecture. So we Welsh towns and communities, they're building buildings with slight Roman architectural inferences, even though they're not part of the Roman Empire. And what the Romans, on the Roman side of things, often thought about was, what was the relative balance sheet of conquest? What would it cost to actually conquer militarily a place and then maintain that conquest and control, versus simply engaging with the communities and trading with them, and then taxing, which the Romans are absolutely brilliant at doing, taxing the trade and imports that then came in and out of the Roman Empire to that community. As a result, making a profit without having to expend anything on conquest and ongoing control. And actually, we get that sense from the ancient sources that when they're talking about, not only is it going to be far too expensive to bother to conquer these places, but actually we can make a pretty good profit out of trading with them through tax without having to do any of that in the first place. So I think that has a lot to do with the reasons that the Roman Empire does not expand, particularly Britain, further than it did, and indeed in other parts of the wider Mediterranean world as well. I don't think we can say that it was just because the weather got too bad, the rain was too much, the ground was too soggy. Although, of course, there are elements of that, because what the Romans did brilliantly was mix up soldiers from different parts of the empire to then be sent to other parts of the empire. And we have the wonderful Vindelander tablets from Hadrian's Wall, where we see all of those, some of those letters that have been written home from the Belgian soldier who's posted at Hadrian's Wall, writing home, demanding, wishing for more beer to make living there palatable. Others wanting, thick woolen socks so that they don't get so cold, etc., etc. So there's a little element of that, but I don't think it's what stopped them from going further. And then again, in the Roman world, John Elizade has been asking about the Extomb series that we did, where we went into the catacombs in Rome to have a look at a very particular set of burials within one of the catacombs, where unusually, compared to what catacomb burials are normally like, there are 250 bodies that have all just been piled up together and left in all sorts of very weird and odd burial ritual states, but all of which have no obvious signs of trauma as to why they died. So seems to be a mass disease event that when we went in and the scientists were actually analysing the leftover teeth and the bones to try and get some sense of what bacteria remains there still would be on these bodies and to be able to then work out kind of what had killed them. It seems to be connected with one of the great plagues that swept through the Roman Empire, particularly the Antonine Plague as well. Now, John's asking whether you can actually go and see those bodies and go to those catacombs. Now, John, you're heading back to Rome at the end of the summer, you lucky thing. So these particular tombs, or we can't really call them tombs, it's a mass burial event really, are within the catacombs of St. Marcellinus and St. Peter. Now, the catacombs of St. Marcellinus and St. Peter are open to the public. You can go and visit them, and they are marvellous for all sorts of reasons, because it's a real mix of different styles of catacombs, from kind of group catacombs, kind of the very rich end of catacombs, very ornate, internal, beautiful wall paintings to have a look at, right the way through to this kind of mass burial event that we were examining for the X-Tombs problem. Now, what I don't know is specifically whether you can, as the public, access the area of the X-Tombs, because all of the burials are simply piled, the skeletons are still piled one on top of one another, and actually access where we were doing it was across rickety ramps, kind of lying flat across open ground. So I don't know if there's a good chance to get up close and personal with those bodies. You might not want to, given they all died of some kind of mass plague, but kind of hopefully you can at least get near to them. Now, the only thing to say, if you're going at the end of the summer, the catacombs of St. Marcellinus and St. Peter are closed during August, and they do that because actually they have to go in, and with all of the catacombs have to have a significant period of closure each year, because they have to go in and really put down some pretty heavy, bug spray, for want of a better way, rodent spray, to kind of kill off anything that actually starts living within the catacombs on a year-by-year basis, because the number of people jumping in and out when they're open to the public. So they have to close them for a month to let the stuff that they've put in there, which really wipes anything out, settle, so that you don't breathe it in. And then come September, it should be absolutely fine for you to go in, but just don't go in on a Thursday. They're not open on a Thursday indeed. So there we go, some great questions, and our time is running out kind of already, and I had some more questions that I wanted to get to, but I do just want to take a moment to sort of look at some of the things that have been going on in the ancient world and pick up on some of my favourites. So kind of we are getting the Gladiator sequel. This is kind of exciting and wonderful to my heart, and people are now being named in the parts. Kind of although the actual film itself is untitled, it might not just be called Gladiator 2. But I think this is especially important because I've been working with my students here at Warwick, and we've been looking at elements of the representation of the classical world in film. Now these are students, studying, they're 18, 19, 20 in 2021, 2022, 2023, and they have no sense of Gladiator. The original movie came out in 2000, completely passed them by, came out before they were born, and here we are kind of seeing it as the kind of this seminal work that kicked off this whole new modern era, the representation of the ancient world on screen. So no idea of Gladiator, no idea of 300, you've really got to kind of come forward to very, very, very recent films and documentary series about the ancient world for them to really pick it up and go, I've seen that. So kind of would definitely be good to get Gladiator back in the frame, kind of with a whole new generation. Now, I was saying something briefly about myth as well, and it really does feel like there's been kind of myths are having what are known as a pop culture moment in 2023. So kind of Greek mythology is a dominant theme in pop culture of 2023, apparently. Not only are publishing houses churning out modern retellings, we've seen lots of great stuff that's been happening kind of recently, TV bosses are racing, apparently, to release shows about Zeus and Persephone, two interesting choices, and Generation Zers are debating plot points from Greek myth on TikTok, like they're analysing an episode of Euphoria. So kind of how has this obsession with the Greek myths and Greek retellings kind of come to the fore? Well, this is a whole new one for me on TikTok, but apparently it is #BookTok for those who are on TikTok. You can, the Nerd Daily has another article, 11 mythology-inspired book releases to look forward to in 2023. If you love a mythology book telling, then if you get on hashtag BookTok, you can kind of start debating and talking about all the new releases that are coming out as well. So kind of there we have it. Greek myth is part of a pop culture moment in 2023, and that might be what is kind of helping push all of your questions towards thinking about Greek myths, and of course all the other things that we've covered. Alexis says, no idea of the film Gladiator. Yes, I know, isn't it horrific? Makes us feel very, very old indeed. But we can finish off on this high note that if you've got a little bit of spare cash, and I have no idea how much exactly this is, but I'm expecting it might be quite a bit. The Met Museum has launched an ancient Greek inspired fragrance. Yes, the Met Museum, the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, has worked with a fragrance company to unveil a line of scents inspired by their different galleries. Now, I'm thinking Jorvik Viking Museum, where they're trying to recreate the scents and scent of what it was like to be in a Viking kind of community home. But I don't think that's what they're going for this time. The Greek and Roman themed gallery, the fragrance is described as this: the earthy yet refreshing fragrance that is terracotta rose evokes the detailed work of Greek artisans through salt and mineral notes blended seamlessly with earthen terracotta. Soft pomerose creates floralcy and brightness as herbal undertones bring beauty and balance to this tranquil scent. I think kind of look no further for Christmas presents far and wide. You too can smell like Greece and Rome, or the Greek and Roman themed galleries in the Metropolitan Museum of Art. I'm not quite sure which they're going for, but either way, it sounds very, very good indeed. So on that high note, we are already out of time. Things coming up. I wanted to flag the actors of Dionysus are having Stories in the Garden at Atlanta the Adventurer at the Brighton Fringe on the 20th and 21st of May. So in particular, do kind of have a think about that. There's been tons of great podcasts to catch up with. There's also some really interesting documentaries on the BBC World Service about Alexander the Great, another character that often gets confused in movies, and people have a lot to say about how they are portrayed. A great In Our Time on Solon, the Lawgiver, as well on Radio 4, one of my personal favourites. And a run on the gods continues on History Hit with this time Athena, the goddess of wisdom. And of course the You're Dead to Me podcast on both Cleopatra and Atlantis, I would recommend that you have a look for. So we will have to leave it there for now. Next time, when are we coming back together next time? Well, it's going to be another couple of weeks because, of course, in less than a month, on the 25th of May, my new book, X Marks the Spot, is launching. So hopefully we will see some of you at the festivals, at the Hay Festival and at the Chalk Valley Festival. They're the first two coming up there where I'll be speaking. Do come and say hello and get a book signed afterwards, and just come and have a chat. It'd be lovely to see you if you happen to be at those festivals. But we will all join together for the next Q&A on the 1st of June. 1st of June at 5 p.m. and I'll be able to tell you a little bit about how the launch went and initial reviews. But I am absolutely astounded by the reaction of the book for the book that's coming in so far. And it was an absolute honour, as you saw on Twitter and Instagram, to have a quote about the book from a no less a great explorer than Ranulph Fiennes. So kind of that was an absolute high point for me of my career so far. And I hope when you get a chance to read it, you will enjoy it hugely as well. In the meantime, until the 1st of June then, stay safe, stay well, keep sending in your questions, michaelscottacademic@gmail.com or through the Facebook page. And we look forward to catching up then to answer some more all together. And hopefully by that stage, we will also, of course, be all smelling of terracotta rose, but hopefully not of the spray that they put down in the catacomb of St. Marcellinus and St. Peter to kill everything off during August time. In the meantime, take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.